my goodness. Thank you guys for being here today with the community. I am so excited. This session in particular is really, really going to be powerful because we're going to talk about the power of the mind. And not today. We're not doing mindset. We're doing the mindset of the person on the other side. We're bringing in an agent who has a deep background in psychology. And some of you have been able to spend time before with Mariah Dietz. And I'll tell you, if you haven't spent time with her before, it makes a huge impact on your business and on your career. She got started quickly in real estate and skyrocketed her success. And today we're going to talk about things that you guys can do to do exactly the same thing. So I think this is really, really exciting for all of us. And I can't wait to dig in a little bit. So Mariah, first off, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with the community and for pouring into all the agents today, especially about this topic that I know something you're really passionate about.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. I'm really excited to be with all of you today. Psychology has always been a real big passion of mine since I was younger. Throughout high school, it was an elective that I always took interest in. When I got into college, that was one of my main focuses. A lot of it was psychology, more on the business side of things. Real estate was always my end goal, but I wanted to have a business background. And I took a lot of courses such as interpersonal communication. And that's going to be the main topic we talk about today, because what are we in? Sales, right? So we have to understand how to communicate with our clients, with our colleagues, and also with ourselves. So I'm really excited to get started with you guys today. I know it's the summertime. I know kids are home from school and we're on vacation, but I love the fact that everybody takes the opportunity on Wednesdays to jump in the Core 90 training. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. So a little bit about me. As Jeff said, I'm Mariah Dietz. My first name's Luna, so I always advertise that. I have an amazing downline, P&W Dream Homes. For a little bit about me is my background is in business, and I studied psychology for about 6 years. I started out at community college, and I went over to Southern Oregon University. I started real estate in April 1st of 2020, and since then I have a little over $24 million worth of sales. And a lot of it has to do with the fact I understand the basic psychology of individuals, and I really focus on that communication. Okay, and so what we're going to be talking about is why psychology matters in sales and building those long-term relationships, and simply just understanding your prospects, your clients. Okay, so I would love to kind of dive more into that interpersonal communication. I love getting you guys engaged. So I'm going to have a little session with you and we're going to brainstorm. So if anyone has any kind of knowledge of interpersonal communication, if you know what it is, if you don't know what it is, that's okay. I want to see what you think it is. So give me some ideas, drop it in the comments, shout it out. Let me know what interpersonal communication is for you. I know Jeff is really great at looking at those comments, so let's hear that, you guys.
All right, I'm watching the chat. So the question on the table is, what is interpersonal communication? Does anybody know? What does that mean to you? If you hear someone say interpersonal communication, what are we talking about?
Don't be shy, you guys.
If we don't get a taker, I'll take a stab at it, although I'm guessing I won't be 100%. I don't have the psychology background.
I'll take a shot at it. Interpersonal communication, the first thing I think is the communication with myself. That's my guess.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do some calling out some people too, you guys. What about you, Colby? You're really engaged. Let's see what you think.
So Tyler says exchanging ideas, information, and message. Lexi says it's between people. Amanda says it's being relatable. I'm going to add in, I believe it is communication in all of its forms between individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, those are really great ideas. So interpersonal communication, we could break it down, right? So right now, I'm the sender. So I am sending a message to the receivers, which is you guys. You're the ones who are receiving the message. So it's communication between at least 2 people. And being able to do that effectively is so important. And then also being able to be the receiver. Now, we're in sales, and majority of the time, people think that sales, we're usually the senders, right? That's what people think. But to be successful, we want to actually be more of a receiver in our line of industry, our clients. We're real estate agents, we like to talk, or you might be a lender who likes to talk, but that's not going to allow us to learn about our clients. They're going to think that we are more about ourselves and more about our paychecks, right? So being able to be on both sides is really important. So being a receiver is the person receiving that message. Now, I would love to kind of do some role playing. So, Jeff, I'm calling you out, okay?
Let's do it, man.
So
I'm excited.
I absolutely love to role play, but then I hate role playing, especially if I'm the one who's involved with it. So don't judge me if I start laughing. No. But okay, so Jeff, I want you to be the sender in the situation, okay?
Sure.
I'm going to actually stand up, and I want you to kind of engage with me. Pretend that I'm a prospect. You want to approach me. I'm at the park. You see that I have a dog. It's kind of noisy in the background. We're at a playground. There's lots of kids. I may have my kids with me too. So I want you to approach me as you're a realtor looking for new business. Okay?
Sure.
So,
you bet.
I'm going to stand up. I'm not too tall, you guys. So maybe I'll stand up. Let's see. Okay. This is a real active one, you guys. Okay. Can everybody see me okay?
I love it.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm at the playground. I have my dog with me, and I have my kids over there. So go ahead and feel free to approach me.
Hey there. How are you?
Oh, fine.
Okay. Well, hey, cool dogs, by the way. What kind of dogs are they?
Chihuahuas, I think.
Chihuahuas.
Mixed,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
used to have a Chi-Chi back in the day, but he he moved on. So these guys love the park, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they're okay. I'm really just here with my kids, and it's a good time to bring the dogs out.
That's awesome. I love that you're doing
Yeah.
that. I'm kind of in between work sessions right now. I'm in real estate. What do you do?
Oh, okay. Just stay at home, Mom.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Well, anyway, I thought I'd say hey. And by the way, if you happen to know of anybody who needs to buy or sell, I'd love to work with them. Do you happen to know anyone who's looking for a house right now?
No, it's okay. Thank you. I gotta go.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good day.
You too.
There we go.
Okay, you guys. So I am diving in. Thank you so much, Jeff. That is awesome. Like I said, I hate being the one in the position to be in role playing, but it's super fun. And I'll tell you right now, find somebody and role play with them. If you don't have someone with you, find a mirror, right? Talk in the mirror, record yourself, watch your nonverbal cues, watch your body language. And what that's going to do is you're going to be able to pick up yourself, right? Because when we're talking to someone, Jeff, you can't see yourself, your facial expressions, right? You can't see your body language. And there's some things that we do and we may not be aware of it. So watch yourself in a video, role play with other people, have them throw you some curveballs too, because we want to be able to think on our feet as sales people. So we have the sender. That was Jeff. He was trying to get me a message. I was the receiver. The message was him trying to let me know he's in real estate. He was trying to engage with me. Now, the channel, that's the next step about interpersonal communication. The channel it's the sensory input. How is the message being received? Now, in that case, we were verbal, right? So it was auditory, the input that I was receiving. If you're doing a text message, right? So that's writing. There's so many different ways we could receive messages, but in this situation, that was, verbal. So I would love to hear everybody's input about my body language. What was my body language telling Jeff? And how did he perceive it?
I'll tell you what I perceived. You were cold. and nervous and not interested and trying to get me to go away.
Exactly. Now, can you guys tell me why Jeff was able to pick up on that? What was my body doing? What was my facial expressions doing? Where was my body turned? All around. Explain what my behavior was. Yes, very cold.
Yeah, I mean, we can see in the chat, Lexi says, looking away at your phone, turned away, kept looking at your phone. Attention was elsewhere, Chris says. I noticed that your arms got crossed at one point. Your body literally pivoted, kept turning to the left as a safety reflex. Steve says, no eye contact. Alita said, short answers. I also noticed that your lips were pursed, eyes were slightly closed. There was no smiling.
Mm-hmm. Those are really great, you guys, because I didn't even pick up on those on my own, on myself. So that, once again, great reason why to record yourself. But yeah, exactly. So body language is so important when you are the sender. Being able to pick that up, you guys, being aware of that and acknowledging it is going to help you in situations such as open houses, right? We want to come off as confident, but we also want to read the guest's body language. If they come in, they're giving you short answers, they are turning away, they're not making eye contact. That's someone that during my open houses, I typically pull away from, right? I don't want to come off as pushy and annoy them, because what's that going to do? That's going to make them leave the house really quickly. And same thing with listing appointments or approaching new people. I build my business around networking. I don't really pay for leads. Sometimes I'll pay for leads if we have an amazing listing going live and I want to push that out to my team. But other than that, I don't personally pay for leads for myself. I'm out there networking. I'm at the park connecting. What I will look for is someone on their phone. I'm probably not going to approach them. Are they chasing a toddler? I'm not going to approach them. But if it's a mom or a dad who's just standing there, they have that open, friendly body language, I'm going to approach them. And so let's do that again. Now, this time, Jeff, you're super outgoing, you're super friendly. I want you to kind of stand up, right? And I'm going to approach you. And what I want you to do is be open to it, be friendly. Let's really get engaging. And let's kind of point out how you do it.
Yeah, you bet. Hold on, let me step back a little bit.
Okay. You didn't know you were going to work, did you?
Oh, I work every day, man. All right, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So what I want you to do, Jeff, is kind of act as if you're maybe talking to someone else. And then I'm going to give you one little cue that I want you to do. So when I approach, I want you to turn your body towards me. I want you to have your hands open. Don't have them down if you have them open, because this means you're inviting, and it means that you're honest, you're truthful, and you're passionate. When your hands are down, closed off like this, that means you're closed off. You're not wanting to be engaged, and you may not be open to communication. So let's go ahead and do this.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to approach you as if I'm coming this way. So, yeah. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing today? Sorry to interrupt.
Hey, how are you? Hey, it's
I'm
nice to meet you.
really good. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
Yeah, you bet. It's good to see you.
Yeah, what are you doing these days? Has it been crazy busy with business?
A little bit, just hanging at the park today, but yeah, definitely. It's been a crazy year. It's kind of crazy for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been so amazing this summer. I know, I helped you buy your home about 2 years ago, and I haven't really seen you since.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I sent you a couple postcards checking in and giving you tips about what to clean and focus on with keeping up home maintenance. Did you receive those?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been keeping up with everything and follow you actually on social media too. It looks like you're doing great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I am. I'm so excited. I was thinking about you because we're coming up to that 2-year mark. It was your first home. Are you still loving it? Are you thinking about taking the opportunity of, equity and upgrade finally?
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned it. We were looking at getting something bigger, but with all the rates and the stuff going, I have tried to not to watch the news too much, but it seems too scary out there right now. So we thought we'd probably wait for a little while longer before we do anything.
Okay, well, since that 2-year mark is up still, I would love to get you a market analysis. We could even sit down, we could talk about it, and I could answer any questions. A lot of those interest rate talks, it's scary. I completely understand that. But I have some really good news about it too. So let's set up something and we can sit down and go over that market analysis report.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Just reach out to me whenever. That sounds great.
Yeah, I actually have my calendar in front of me right now. Do you want to pull out your phone and maybe we could set something up for next week?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Perfect, you guys. So can you guys tell me who the receiver was and who the sender was? It's pretty obvious in that situation. I was the sender from the start, and then Jeff was the receiver, but then I also flipped the roles, right? So I wanted to receive information from Jeff, and that's what a good salesperson is going to do. I wanted to pull out information from him. I was able to tell that they still love their home, but they're wanting to upgrade. They want a bigger home. They are scared of the current interest rates that we're handling, and it's my job to kind of educate them, right? Those interest rates that we're seeing, it's something that we saw a few years ago before COVID. And we could always, as you know, refinance. So I want to be able to educate them. Although they're not first-time home buyers anymore, they'll end up being a listing and a purchase, but it's a different phase in their lives. It's a different scenario for them. So I still want to make sure I educate them. But I was able to flip the roles right there. And Jeff, your body language, you were open. Even though you were talking to someone at the start and I interrupted, you were still really excited to engage with me. My body language, I was facing directly to you, but my verbal cues also, I was really direct, right? I wasn't like, oh, why don't you think about it? I said, hey, let's pull out our calendars right now. Let me educate you. Let's sit down. That's something that's really important in sales. If you tell them, let's think about it. Why don't you think about it? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go home. They're not going to think about it. Right? It's going to slip their mind and then you'll be forgotten. If you're
They've got too much to think about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm not ready. So by us saying, oh, why don't you think about it? We're giving them the option to either think about it or not to think about it. What we want to do to boost our sales is be direct and, let's face it, be in person. We could send all the text messages we want. We could email, but written communication, you lose the tone. You lose the body language. And if somebody is upset for the day for whatever reason and they get a message, you may want the receiver to receive it as a positive way. But if they're hangry, right, they're going to read it with a negative tone. They're not going to perceive it the way you want to, and they may think you're being rude. So making sure that as much as we can, we want to either send a video through text message. A lot of people are loving that. It's a great way because they get to see your body language, they get to see your facial expressions, and you hear your tone of voice. A lot of people are audio. So for instance, when you're learning, some of us have to hear it. Some of us have to touch it. So sensory comes into a huge role when you're communicating. Visual, right? And if someone is hard of hearing or someone is hard of seeing, that may interfere. That might bring some noise. And so being aware of your prospects and your targeted audience, you may have to adjust it.
Now, Luna Mariah, I'm just curious because this is one thing that I really love. And I just want to zoom out really quick for everybody on the call to say, did you guys notice that she wanted to role play? I can't emphasize enough how important role play is in sales training in general. And if you're like, well, I don't really do that, that's fine. That's like being an Olympic swimmer and saying, I don't really get in the pool and swim laps. Like you need to engage in some level of role play, because the alternative is that the way that you're practicing is using your clients as guinea pigs, right? And that's probably going to produce a lesser effect. And I love that you have the bravery, by the way, Mariah, to do this in front of a group, because it's not necessary. I don't want to say it's not the easiest thing, but when you're getting going, especially there's probably agents on here that if we called their name, they'd suddenly have like connection problems, right? Like it would be like, oh, my internet isn't working, I'm off the call, right? Like, so I don't want to do that because it creates fear. But I will say, this is one of the most powerful strategies to get yourself comfortable. And guess what? While it sucks to feel stupid or to say something dumb or to stumble with your words or whatever, I've done it a million times. Oh my gosh. But guess what? Doing it with a friend doesn't cost you any money. And doing it with a prospect costs you a potential transaction. And I see that Jason has his hand up. I want to keep tabs on that stuff. Do you have time for a quick question?
Yeah, you guys, I really want to engage with this one. So,
well, I just wanted to throw this in there because, I think what you did is powerful, right? This is what sets us apart from being to be a top producer, honestly. And the two things I caught with that is, number one, you asked for business. Hey, it's been 2 years. Have you thought about selling your home? I mean, if we're not doing that, we're kind of missing the boat, right? So I think that's phenomenal. And number two, you didn't take it as, when Jeff said, hey, just call me next week. No, you're like, no, in your head, you're like, nope, that's not an appointment. No. Hey, let's get our calendars out. What do you got going on? I mean, we have to, those two things just screamed out to me, asking for the business and then taking that as, no, that's not an appointment of, hey, just call me. Because what that means is I want to go. I don't really want to commit. And you're like, no, hey, what's your calendar look like? So phenomenal, Mariah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's something that I've never really been a reader besides when I was in college. I'll be honest with that. And I think the reason why I enjoyed reading in college was because I was learning. Well, I have made it a goal this year to, how can I boost my knowledge even more? So I've been reading some amazing materials and listening to iPods, especially with all the driving that I do. Why not take the opportunity to learn as I'm driving to a listing appointment, as I'm driving to showings, just to kind of put in perspective of how much a successful real estate agent drives. You guys, I bought a new car in February. It already has 29,000 miles on it. It's a lot. I'm a little embarrassed to tell my insurance company when they asked me, what's the average? I'm like, I don't know. What's the average someone usually drives a year, right? Definitely not me. So there's some great podcasts. And what I can do is I can make a post on the community Facebook page, and I could share some links to the podcasts that I listen to and share some books. But there's one where it's The Psychology of Selling. It's a podcast I listen to on Spotify. And what he really focuses on is the top 20% of salespeople. The rest of the 80%, they're mediocre, they're average. But what really, really makes a difference, some people think it might be a big difference, and it's really not. It's the tiny, tiny bit of a change. And it's the person who's in the top 20 who's being direct, who is not taking no for an answer, but in a respectful way. Like when Jeff was like, oh no, we're kind of scared. I'll think about it. Oh no, right? What did I do? I asked him directly, hey, let's sit down. What's your calendar doing? If I walked in away and said, okay, yeah, I'll give you a call next week, I may forget. He may forget. I may call at the bad time and we will never connect. And then when his best friend becomes a real estate agent a month later, and his best friend gets a hold of him, I may lose that client. So being direct, you guys, paying attention to the noise while you're communicating. Now, the noise you may think, is it loud music? It could be the environment you're in. It could be physical factors. Does Jeff have a headache at the time? Is he super thirsty? Am I really thirsty? So communication is a lot more detailed than just us talking back and forth. There's great ways to boost your sales. I absolutely love open houses. How many of you guys actually do open houses? And what are some challenges that you see and come across during an open house when you have prospects coming through? I would love to hear what you guys are challenges. Maybe we could talk through that, and maybe I could give you some different pointers.
Okay, so the question on the table is, what challenges do you run into at open houses? Someone comes into an open house, and specifically for today, we're talking about psychology. So what do you notice with people in terms of their receptiveness? They come into an open house. What's the most common thing that you see from that person? We'll know if you've ever done an open house if you answer this question, because
I know Colby raised your hand that you do open houses. So let's hear what you got to say, Colby.
I'll throw one out there. I mean, I kind of know what I do, but what do you do? What's your reaction, Mariah, when someone comes in and you're talking to them, they say, oh, you know what? I already have an agent. What do you do when they say that?
Yeah, well, as agents, we have to be ethical. So that's my first train of thought. It's okay, how can I approach and how can I bring value to this guest of the open house while still being ethical, right? I say, that's absolutely amazing. And I want to gather information. A lot of times people who come through open houses, they really don't have agents. They just don't want to be bothered, right? So if the person, they're open to connection, so they're not closed off, they're not really giving me short answers, they may drop that they have an agent, I'm going to ask, oh, who's your agent? I'm going to put them on the spot. I'm going to gather that information. And so let's say they say, oh, my agent's Jason. Oh, are you talking about, Jason? He's with EXP. Oh, yeah, that's him. Jason's absolutely amazing. You are in great hands. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I would really love to show you, the backyard. It's absolutely gorgeous. I see that you have your little doggy with you. It's fully fenced. Let's go ahead and go in the backyard. I want to bring value to all of the guests because what my goal is to sell the home. Right? Rather it's my listing or a team member's listing. I still want to find a buyer. And if they're working with Jason, that's absolutely amazing. But let me kind of share a little trick. Now, let's say Jason wasn't such a great agent, right? Let's say he doesn't communicate. Let's see, he just told his client, oh, just go to the open house. I'm out on the boat today, right? He's not being receptive to his client. That client's going to leave. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my business card. I'm going to like, hey, if Jason has any questions, I'm here till 4 o'clock. I'm not the listing agent, but I know a lot about the home. Why don't you go ahead and have Jason give me a call, right? He could, ask me questions if you had any specific ones about the home. And if Jason's a horrible agent, which you're not, Bob, he's going to be like, you know what? Luna was more helpful than Jason. I'm going to go ahead and break that relationship, with Jason, and I'm going to call Luna because she was really helpful and I don't like that house, but I bet she could send me other homes. And because they have my information and because I know it's Jason's client, I'm going to have a name already. So when they do call me on their own, I'm not going to call them, but when they do call me on their own, I feel like that's more of an ethical route to go. But I always want to bring value. Because if Jason drops the ball, I want to be the first person they think of.
I absolutely love that. And the nice thing is that you're respecting the ethics of some of these boundaries that exist. And also just remember on the agency side, by the way, if you talked to somebody one time and they said they were interested in buying a house, you're not their agent. Agency exists at the point of contract, just so everyone understands how agency works in real estate. It's a contract sport, not a contact sport. I mean, it can be a contact sport. So the reality is I also like asking somebody, I was like, oh, okay, no sweat. Sometimes people have already signed a contract with an agent and I totally understand. They'll be like, well, we haven't signed anything. And I'll be like, awesome, let's look at the house and talk for a bit. Because that other agent didn't do their job. And that's fine. I don't really care. And I'm not going to badmouth the agent. That's not my job. But my job is to build the biggest business I possibly can. And if that other agent isn't protecting their fields, that's great. Now, I saw that Kimmy, by the way, made a comment here in the chat. She says, I do many open houses. And Kimmy's an amazing agent. If anyone doesn't know that. Oh, no, that was Yvette. But anyway, Kimmy, I know, does open houses and she's an awesome agent. And so I was wondering if Kimmy or Yvette, one of the two of you, would like to jump up on here and comment a little bit on the experiences that you've had at open houses specifically. And I will mention, by the way, one thing that I see a lot at open houses. We used to do crap load of open houses. Sorry, I had to edit the ever living get out of that. But that people come in, they're very guarded. And I saw that that's what Yvette said as well. Same kind of guarded that you were actually at the park example at the beginning, right? Like a lot of times people are almost angry that you're in the house. They were like, oh, I thought this was going to be empty. It's like, it's a very uncomfortable moment. It's like, how did that happen? Why are we so pissed off?
I've come across that quite a bit. So I absolutely love open houses. Right now in my career, I have a lot of new agents. So I'm either hosting and having someone shadow with me, or I've been pushing open houses off to my newer agents because it's a great way to get in front of people and to build that confidence in yourself. And being in sales, we have to have confidence. You're going to have, let's say, I don't have a lot of confidence in myself. And, I closed maybe 2 deals in a year. But we have Jason here, he's super confident. He's facing forward. His chest is, raised, his shoulders are relaxed. He comes off as really confident. If I'm like this and, I'm just fidgeting a lot, playing with my hair. Now, I'll tell you a little thing. If someone's playing with their hair, females, we do this a lot. Men, they tend to do this quite a bit, especially if they're getting hot. But women, we have 2 different ways we play with our hair. If we're nervous, we're going to be going away from the head, right? We're going to be doing this. We're going to be coming like this. If we're confident, if we're being flirty, our hands are open. And I've said that at the very beginning. If your hands are down, you may not be being truthful. So if you're like this, but if your hands are like this, you're being honest. You really are passionate about what you're talking about, and you're being truthful. And so a lot of times if we're like this, we're just closed off. And that's the same thing with our arms, right? Like this, closed off, open. So I'm going to bounce around all over the place, but because I get an idea and I want to say it. When we're doing our headshots, right? I hate this pose, you guys. Don't have a headshot like this, please, because if you do, you're going to come off as closed off and not confident. Have your hands on your hips. That's going to be a powerful stance, right? Be direct in your photos. Don't be off like this and turn this way like this. You're going to be closed off. You're not going to be approachable, even in your business cards. So keep that in mind. But when we are hosting open houses and we're really, really closed off, people are not going to want to approach us. So if you have a lot of that during your open houses, think about, what is my body language saying? Where am I standing when they first come in? Am I right at the door? Am I opening the door, making it difficult to get through the small walkway? Am I approaching them before they can even open their eyes after walking through the door? Think about what you're doing. Try to stand away from the front door. Allow them to come in on their own pace. Allow them to maybe come into the dining room or the kitchen. That's usually where I set up my sign-in sheet. And I always have a clipboard because I want to gather as much information as I can. But I'm usually in the kitchen, dining room area. Once they come in, I say, hello there. My name's Luna Mariah. I'm not the listing agent, but I am hosting. We have an open house sign-in sheet. Why don't you come on over and, sign it? And the whole time my body language is open. My tone of voice is exciting. And I'm giving them that distance, right? Because a big part of communication and psychology is, where are we placing our bodies next to the receiver? Are we up in their face? That's going to be really uncomfortable if we've never met them before. You may be within 20 inches of someone you are passionate with or you're more intimate with. You're going to create more distance the further apart your relationship is with that person. So if Jeff walked into my open house, I'm not going to be 20 inches away from him. That's going to be really invasive to his personal space, and he's going to be standoffish. But if I'm 20 feet away from him and allow him to approach me by me saying, hey, I have a sign-in sheet, go ahead and come in and sign in, that's going to have them breaking that barrier and breaking up that distance. That may allow them to let their guard down a little bit more than if you were right up front to them.
It's almost like body proximity consent, right? Like you want it to kind of be their decision to come toward you so that things feel comfortable. And I love this focus, by the way. Yeah, close talker. That's hilarious, Steve. I remember that. The close talker. Anyway, old school. So yeah, one thing that can happen as well is think about it like a dinner party, right? Can you imagine if someone came to your house? And I used to tell this to our team, still tell this to a lot of our coaching clients. If somebody comes to a dinner party at your house, and I'm a big fan of How I Met Your Mother, the TV show. I don't watch much TV, but I do like that show a lot. And there's a character on there, Marshall, who freaks out every time they have a dinner party, and he just keeps forcing cheese on people because it's the only thing he's allowed to take care of at the dinner party. So he's like, would you like some Gouda? Would you like some Gouda? Would you like some cheese? Some cheese? Here's some cheese. And it's like, people are like, geez, Louise. And I feel like sometimes agents do that because they're so excited. You are so excited that somebody finally just walked through the front door. And now what I always call it is now you're humping their leg. And that's way too close, y'all. Like you got to step back and let people. So another approach would just be to have an item of value. Hey, listen, I've got a little printout over here. You could be in the kitchen 20 feet away. Listen, I've got a little printout over here. It's got all the details on the property. If you're interested, I'd love for you to grab one.
Yeah.
Now they can approach. Now you could meet them halfway. If they start walking your direction, that's great. But if they're like, I think we're good, we're just kind of browsing. That's like the person in the shoe store who knows full and well they are there to buy shoes. But what does everyone say in the shoe store when the helpful person comes over? Hey, can I help you out today? What does everyone say? I'm just browsing. That's it. I don't even know why we started. We browse a book. You don't browse shoes. But anyway, that's somehow for some reason what we all say. Or I'm just looking, right? It's one of those options. Are they really going to buy shoes? Hell yeah. They just don't need your help yet.
Exactly. And that brings to a really good point too, Jeff. We have this stereotype. We have this bias against salespeople, right? A lot of times salespeople, we're shy to say, hey, I'm in sales. Would you tell someone, oh, what do you do? Do you say, oh, I'm in sales, or do you say I'm a real estate agent? We probably say we're a real estate agent at first because there's such a bias with sales. But in reality, sales has been one of the longest careers in our nation, right? People have always sold. And it's one of the longest ways to earn money. Sorry, guys, brain fart here. I'm trying to do the whole no coffee thing and my brain is like not enjoying it. But it's one of the long lasting ones. And you can be in the top 1% income wise. But knowing how to get there, you want to get yourself in the 20%. And that's going to be by understanding the basic of psychology, whether it's interpersonal communication, or if you dive a little bit deeper and really learn about all the different ways to communicate and how the male communicates versus how females communicate. It's way different. Males, you guys are problem solvers, right? Us females, we are off of our emotions. And that kind of pulls into your time management too. So people who struggle with time management, you're more emotional.
Sorry about that. Hey, Luna. So Yvette had commented on here, and I want to see if she's willing to unmute here and kind of be part of the conversation, because I know she said she does a lot of open houses, and I'd be excited to hear. She said she's running into a lot of folks who are just a little guarded or kind of standoffish, and to see if what she's doing kind of aligns with what your thoughts are here. Yvette, are you there?
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking before you even said it. The first person that trained me to do open houses said, stay back in the kitchen, allow them to walk in. This is your open house. Let them come to you, because it also makes them more comfortable and also gives you a little bit of control. I do notice that I get really excited when somebody comes to the door, and people do knock on the door, especially if it's hot outside and the door is closed. So then when I open the door, sometimes I'm like, hi, and I reach out to shake their hand. Some people are very receptive, and then other people are like, hi. And then they look at me like, we just want to go over here. And then there's others that just, don't even want to talk to me. I have a hard time getting them to even come over and sign in. So it depends on the person, but I know what you were saying was absolutely right. If you jump up in their face and you're too excited, they're like, they must really need to sell this house and nobody must be interested, So
yeah. And, we want to mirror our object's body language and behavior. So if I'm sitting there and I'm talking to a seller and he places his arm on his, armrest, I'm not going to do it right away because that looks really weird, and they'll notice it. But I might wait a minute or 2 minutes, and then I'll change my position to match his. And same thing with my tone of voice. If they're super excited, I'm going to be super excited. You kind of want to mirror your object's personality in a sense, not that you want to change yours completely, but match their energy, because
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you match their energy, they're going to be more drawn to you.
And we've got Joanne Graham here as well. She just raised her hand. Joanne, are you able to unmute there?
Yeah, I'm hoping you can hear me. I unmuted the big TV. So I wanted to say it depends on who's at the door and what generation, like the older generation, if they're elderly people, they want to be met at the door. They want to be welcomed in. They want to be like escorted in. Like they're not. Anyway, we just had one last Sunday, and it was the elderly gentleman was coming up in his walker, and he couldn't get up the one step into the house, and he told his wife, this isn't going to work. And so I just went and I put my hand out and I grabbed his hand and I helped him up the step, and he was so thankful. So it just depends on, like you were saying, mirroring what it is that they need. Because otherwise, if I was in the kitchen, they would have turned around and walked away and never even got in the house because he couldn't get up one step, which, anyway, just throwing that out there.
No, that's a really good point. Understanding the different generations. If it's a younger generation coming in, let's say a 22-year-old is coming in, they're going to be more relaxed. They're going to be typically more casual than if, a 70-year-old or, a baby boomer is coming in. They're going to be a little bit more professional, more reserved and conservative. Whereas, that 20-year-old is going to be spunky and asking a lot of questions and zooming through the home and out the door before you even know it. So really paying attention, once again, to that audience and having a good understanding of just social cues all around. And I know I saw something too that I wanted to really touch base on. I'm going to go in the comments maybe.
While you're looking for that, we've got Jason with his hand up.
Perfect.
I was gonna piggyback on that because it's really talking about all this is understanding the body language. So what made sales easier for me was I was a used car salesman before I went to real estate. So I got the worst part out of the way, right? But with these open houses, one of the things that I do when someone comes in is I use the word welcome. Hey, welcome to our open house. Hello, welcome everybody. When you say welcome, that kind of it breaks that barrier down just a little bit. You're welcoming them into the house, you're welcoming into, what you're doing. And what I do when I ask somebody to fill out the sign-in sheet is after building a little bit of rapport, you want to give something, right? You can't, in my opinion, you want to make sure that you have some value to give. And then, I'll let them know, hey, before you head out, can you please do me a favor? Why don't you fill this out for me? Give me the best feedback you can, because that way I can help the sellers sell their home. Now, most people want to help, right? So now they're like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to let them know that, the backyard wasn't that nice, or it's got a great floor plan with the kitchen. So now people are like, oh yeah, I'll fill that out. I've had the majority of people fill it out. And very, very few say no to that. And at the minute, and I never say fill it out, make sure you put your name and number. I just assume that when I hand them the sheet, they're going to fill it out completely. Now I may grab that sheet when I'm done and say, hey, it looks like here, what's a good number to reach you at, just in case I had some more questions. And then I always ask, I'll throw this in there, Mariah, because everybody's got, their little techniques, right? When someone says to me, or when I ask, hey, do you have an agent? Are you working with anybody? And if they say yes, you're right. The majority of the time, they'll say that just because it's a real quick, I don't want to work with anybody. I always just follow it up with, oh, great. Who are you working with? Because you're right, ethical. If they're working with somebody that I know is a rock star, I'm like, hey, great, go ahead. If they're working with somebody I don't know, okay, cool. Or somebody I know that maybe isn't a rock star, my next question to them is always, well, let me ask you this. Are you committed to that agent? Are you still interviewing to make sure that you have the best agent to help you purchase your home? I just throw that out there, right? And some people will look at me and say, well, what do you mean interview? And then I'll go into that, right? So that's just some tips and tricks from me. So.
No, I love all of those, especially with the interviewing. Kind of, once again, it gets their wheels turning. It makes them start going through that thought process. The biggest thing that I noticed with a lot of agents who are, average agents, which it's great to be average. Everybody has different goals and everything. But what holds them back is they're like, I have a goal to sell 6 homes this year. I have a goal to, net $60,000 this year. What's going to happen when they hit that $60,000 or when they hit that 6 homes? They're going to stop. Right? They're going to have something they may not do it on purpose, but on the back of their brain, it says, oh, I made my goal. I achieved that by September. Then they are like, I can't wait till January because I'm going to set my new goal. So to boost your sales and using that psychology and being really self-aware, you don't want to sell yourself short. Set high goals. For myself, I'm like, okay, I sold, and this is just a random number, I sold 20 homes last year. That was amazing. I actually achieved more. I only wanted to sell 12. I'm going to hit 50 homes this year. I'm going to sell on my own as an individual agent. You're setting that bar high for yourselves. And then when you get to house 30, you're like, you know what? It's only August, right? I still have through December to do even more. Instead of 50, I have 8 in escrow right now. I'm going to hit that 50 probably in November. Let's move it up to 60 homes. You want to always adjust your goals when you're in sales, and you always want to put it even higher. Same thing. If you are closing, if you have 10 homes that you just closed, you're going to be more excited. You're going to be more successful about going out there and getting more business because you just closed a lot of homes, and then that kind of just fades. And that's where you kind of hit that cap. So don't let yourself cap. Always set higher goals. Reevaluate your goals halfway through the year and say, you know what? I've sold 10 homes. My goal was 15. It's June. I want to sell 15 more homes this year. So just keep that in mind. Having positive affirmations before you're going into a listing appointment. If you're going in there positive and confident, your seller is going to draw that in, and they're going to be excited. They're going to have open body language. I would love to kind of hear some ideas of what you guys do for your listings and what challenges you face with communicating with your sellers. What's their body language usually like? Are they open? Is it more relaxed? Is it more professional? I would love to hear what your steps are when you're doing a listing appointment and any challenges, and maybe we could talk through those.
So the question is basically, who has like a pregame routine here before going into a listing appointment? I see Joanne Graham with her hand up. Hey, Joanne.
Hi there. So I have a question for Mariah. So we just went to a listing. You're talking about matching their energy and everything. We got zero energy. It was like hard. You couldn't even connect. They were just like there was nothing coming back. It was like dead air. I was trying to get, you know what I mean? They weren't answering our response. Anyway, so it didn't go well. And afterwards I was like, what could we have done? Obviously you don't want to come in like a, Energizer bunny when they're just like, so what would you do in that situation?
So what did you do when they first opened the door to let you in? What's your process? Do you go sit down right away? Or what are your steps?
See the house. Show us your house. Show us your amazing house. And then we, try to give them some really good compliments and stuff on what we love about their house. Mm-hmm. And it was just the husband and wife were in completely different areas of the house. He was yelling for her to come out. She waltzes out like, oh, what are you doing here? When we made the appointment with her, it was just like, it was just really weird. And anyway, they just didn't seem to be on the same page. And it was hard. And I'm a very experienced agent. So for me, it was like, what the heck just happened?
So I bet they had, and without being there, but my biggest, assumption is maybe they had a lot of noise going on before you arrived. Maybe they were in an argument with them being in separate homes. Maybe they just experienced something. So their environment was pretty noisy, it sounds like. Maybe there's not loud music, but there could be physiology factors, right? Maybe someone was hungry. Maybe they woke up with a headache. So it could have been off to a rough start before you even arrived. I like to, and I'm sure you do too, but I like to call that like the day of, maybe an hour and a half beforehand. Hey, I'm going to be coming over there soon. Are we still set for today? Just to kind of, I like to.
She was on her lunch break, so I'm sure there was some kind of pressure there or whatever. But it was just really odd. It was really unusual experience for me, with being in the business for 20 years. But anyway, I just thought with your psychology that would be, helpful to know your take on it.
My guess is, noise. They probably had some noise going on. before you arrived.
So
Now,
would you like try to stay longer and try to, or we just kind of like wandered off like, it was just odd. So I'm just wondering, what could we have done differently?
I would have been really direct and said, is right now still a good time? Right. It seems like, I don't know her name, Samantha may be really busy. We could definitely schedule and I could come back later today or tomorrow. I probably wouldn't have forced myself to stay there. I would have picked up their body language and their cues and asked them, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything I could help you with? I wouldn't have focused on trying to get the signed paperwork right then and there. Maybe they got in a big fight. We just never know. But I probably would have been really direct and said, hey, right now seems like you guys are pretty busy. I would love to schedule something, and I would pull out my calendar. Can I come back tomorrow? And I think they could have found that being respectful, and it could have been their personalities too. But you given them the option to continue or to reschedule.
I really like this concept, Mariah, in terms of being able to read the person, and the word that you keep using, which I've never heard before in sales training. So I love that it's new, because new is always fun, is noise. And this kind of broad interpretation of noise. Sometimes we think of noise as being something that's in our ears, right? But noise could just be psychological disruption, right? Like I'm just distorted at the moment. And sometimes we believe that it's the other person's job to match us. And what can be interesting is if you're mirroring and matching, and I know you just mentioned mirroring and matching. I love that concept. It kind of goes into that whole body of like neuro-linguistic programming and what exists in that space. If you're mirroring and matching the other person, you come their direction. So for instance, with Joanne's case, if I brought my energy down, I could literally bring my energy down to wherever theirs is and then apologize for my energy being low, which is interesting because it sends all the right signals to them. Because I feel like I need to apologize for my low energy. But if I'm matching them, they're kind of going to have that self-reflective moment. Most people are only thinking about themselves, right? Yeah. About 90% of the time, that's where their focus is. It's just, we tend to play a solo game here. And so I love this concept though of noise. And I know that somebody remind me of the book, if Lexi's still on here, where the black swan concept comes from, or somebody else if they know which book I'm talking about. But that whole concept of a black swan, which Chris Voss, thank you, you're amazing, Lex. And so Chris Voss wrote a book, Never Split the Difference. She's bailing me out here in the chat. That book is incredible. And he talks about the black swan being the thing you don't know that's affecting the outcome of your negotiation. Mm-hmm. And in this case, exactly what Luna Mariah said is they could have been in a big fight. They could have been holding in a fart. Like you have no idea what's going on with this other person, right? Like who cares what it is? Don't make it your problem. It's not your problem, but their energy could just be, you could be reading it as off and they could just be low energy. Some people like live their entire life at like a 1 out of 10 on the energy scale. And if you're a 10 out of 10, or like for me, like a 12 out of 10, then that feels like a huge disparity, but it's our job to just come to their space. And I love that you're talking about just finding them where they are. Can I guide it a little bit? Or, hey, if this is not a great time, or you may just keep it short. Listen, it looks like I've got everything that I need right here. Why don't I come back tomorrow? But I love that Lexi says here, she said, I would persist in trying to break the noise.
No, I think that's really good. I was reading someone's comment there too, but I think that's a really great point. You kind of are putting them in charge, right? Our sellers and even our buyers, they want to feel like they're in charge and the decision makers. They do not want to feel like we're manipulating them or taking advantage of them. So being direct with them, saying, hey, I would love to stay here and finish this, but it seems like you two are pretty busy, kind of in a reality check in a sense to them too. They may not even be aware of their behavior or how they're coming off, but putting them back in charge, giving them the choice. If they want you to stay or not. I'm kind of curious. Did you follow up with them? Did you get the listing or?
Okay, so it was interesting because they had, like, we were the 4th agents that they had interviewed. And then they put on Facebook, we need a realtor. I'm like, oh, okay. But somebody tagged Tracy, who's on my team. So then Tracy contacted her. She goes, well, would it be weird to interview somebody that's that we've already interviewed your team. And I told Tracy, go for it, get the listing. And so Tracy and Brian took over and they're actually going to get the listing. So it's just, that's where the team comes in. But yeah, I don't think we had a chance. Like we just didn't, it was flat. It was so flat that it was like, I don't know, it was weird. It's kind of like a moment for me. It's like, what?
Yeah. Now I'm curious, what was the interaction that Tracy had with them? Were they more positive, energized? Maybe they were, I would say if they interviewed 4 people already, and if it happened to be that same day or within, they could have been overwhelmed with information.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was the next day that it was like they were still looking after like the next day. They weren't, none of the 4 of us hit it out of the park, I guess, So I don't know. I mean, to me, that's kind of more a reflection on them probably, but like I said, timing is everything, and maybe they were in a better headspace. And of course, Brian and Tracy are absolutely amazing. So they got the job done.
Yeah. And, and you said something that's really important. It's on them, right? They're the ones in control of their emotions and the noise that they're letting in. And I have a really good feeling that when you arrived, they had too much noise going on and they had a fog in the house, right? And they couldn't even allow you in. So before you even had the opportunity, they were closed off.
I mean, when we drove up, the guy was very methodically loading stuff into a truck. He hardly acknowledged us. And my first thought was, oh, these 2 are getting a divorce. Like, this is the classic, he's, well, I gotta get my stuff out, And then that wasn't the case at all. Like, they're moving to the family farm, and it's like they've done all this. I mean, it was like once we got in, I'm like, okay, I was totally wrong. They're doing a bunch of work on the house. They're doing a great job, but I just could not get any, like connection. It was just weird.
Yeah, it sounds like it was
exhausted. Maybe they were just tired.
Yeah, no, it sounds like they had a lot going on. So, someone said, rescheduling. You wouldn't really suggest rescheduling. Who's that? Brittany. Oh, I know Brittany. How are you?
So I just want to say something too.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I went to that same listing appointment, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was number 7 or 8 the same day you went. And it was weird. It was the weirdest listing appointment I've ever had. And it was good for like 10 or 15 minutes. Not so good the next 10 minutes. And then we were done. She was done. It was hilarious. And I didn't get it either, clearly. But she did keep communicating with me through the night, but then she didn't choose me.
Oh my goodness. So it just sounds like it was a rough day for them.
I don't know. She had like 8 on the first day. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Overwhelmed with information. Way too much noise going on.
We do have, hold on. Aurelie. Did I do it right?
Aurelie. Yeah,
Aurelie.
you did, Aurelie.
Dang it, man. I'm trying to get your name right. I am so sorry.
I love it. No, you're good. One of the problems I have, I think, is when I'm doing, like, I obviously do the CMA and I kind of have an idea and I ask them, like, how much do you think it's worth? And I think that's when I mess up, because then, like, with this listing right now, they say, like 120 when clearly it's going to sell for maybe like 85 or 95. But in my mind, I was like, look, this is my suggestion. And I still kind of went with what they wanted first, but also telling them, like, I know that if it doesn't sell at this point, like, we're going to have to reduce. Like, what do you want? Start high and go down, or start low and get a bunch of bids and offers? So I guess I know my problem is standing up for myself, but I guess, like, how do I use my words correctly to say, no, I'm right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky. I personally have struggled with that in the past too. I changed up my strategy just recently, and it's actually one of the reasons why I was able to land the listing. So I just had a luxury listing, and he was he was really upfront and direct. I'm interviewing 4 other agents, and I'm like, well, crap, right? This is my first luxury listing. I'm not getting this, right? But I had to then switch that up, and I was like, okay, I need to go in there with confidence. I need to go in there with the perception that I know what I'm talking about. And when it comes to sales but sellers, they want to see the hard facts. They need to see the hard facts, right? So what I personally do is I have my market analysis, which always has the range, but then I bring MLS listings with me. And I point out the, hard facts. I'll have the piece of paper and I'll say, hey, this was originally listed at $120,000. It sat on the market for 120 days. And then it actually sold for, $99,000. They're going to see those hard facts. And then I'm going to show them one that's very similar to their home. This is about the same square footage. It's also a single story home within, a couple blocks away. This was listed at $89,000. It sat on the market for 10 days before it went under contract, and it sold for $105,000. Right. And so I show them those hard facts, and that's right. And I said, ultimately, it is your decision. But if we do list on that higher end, and I go back to the facts, we may sit on the market for 100+ days. And I know you're really motivated. I know, you have a house that you want to purchase and write an offer on. It's going to be a stronger offer if we go in there at a more competitive purchase, list price to draw in more of those. So I bring the facts in and I show them visually the facts. That way they think I'm just not trying to just secure the listing by telling them, oh yeah, we could list it at whatever we want. They want to be confident in us. And so that really just comes down to, what's your confidence level? Are you going in there with strong personality? Or are you going in there with strong, hard evidence with what you're suggesting? When I did that for my luxury listing, he was like, you are the first agent to actually show me that. He was like, I had someone come in and they've been doing it for 25 years and it was a couple and I thought I would like them. And, but in reality, they just told me they'll list it whatever you want me to list it at. And he was a very smart man. And he goes, I have a number. Well, the number he had in his mind was the actual number that me and my co-agent had recommended. And we recommended that because we had the strong evidence.
Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Like I feel like I do go in with this confidence, but then you're right. I don't prepare enough to have that concrete evidence to be like, well, this is why I'm confident that this is the price, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think, and that would come off as what you're talking about because you do, right? But a lot of people have that bias against salespeople that we're just trying to get paid, right? We're not really in it with knowledge, but we are, especially within this group. So just go in with multiple of those MLS, print out the full details and highlight so they could visually see that, because once again, we might be handling with someone who is more of a visual learner versus audio. So if you're bringing it, and we have the touch, we have movement, we have the audio, we have the visual learners, and there's some people who need all of those different sensory inputs. So bringing something hard to hold on to, not just emailing it, but leave it with them too. Going over it with them, really breaking that down with them. And when they ask a question, repeat their question. So they know she's really listening. She understands what I'm asking. And then you go into your answer. So don't just jump into your answer. Repeat what they said. Make sure that's what they said, because if you misheard it, or if you're understanding it differently, then they'll be able to correct it. Well, I love how this has been a super engaging one. I love all the Q&A. Is there any topic when it comes to that interpersonal communication, about body language, about any tips on how you could more prepare?
Well, I was going to throw this in real quick before we got onto that. But one of the things, that going back to Joanne with that listing is I do my best on every client, whether they're buyer or seller, especially a seller, as I ask, hey Jeff, what's your, I want to get to know you. What's your motivation for wanting to sell your home? Mm-hmm. And then just let them spew out whatever that is, because typically they want to know that we're in line with what their goal is, and they'll tell us what that is when they tell us their motivation, right? So I just want to throw that out there. And it took me a while to get that out, to start asking that question. And once I did, I had a better conversion rate on clients, because they really felt like I was just working side by side with them. So.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
I totally agree. And it's also this ability to ask questions so that you can pull information out of the other person. A lot of times if someone's kind of cold shouldering you or giving you cold energy or low energy, and I saw this comment from Lexi earlier and I really appreciated it. It was like, just ask questions, because many times we're trying so unbelievably hard to figure out exactly what we can say. That'll be the magic thing that we can say, that we can say, that we can say, that we can stop saying anything. Ask a question and let them talk. And if they're low energy, guess what? Ask them more questions. Force them to be more, like, literally the way that it's this topic is handled in The Way of the Wolf, great book by Jordan Belfort. He's a total psychopath, but it's an awesome book. But I do recommend it. But he says, take control of the sale immediately. When the other person is pulling your energy all over the place and they're mopping the floor with you, it means they're winning the sales battle. You're not, period. End of story. And you're not understanding the psychology that'll be involved. And by the way, speaking of psychology, if I can get the other person talking, who's the leader? Me. By not talking, I'm leading more. I promise you that. And what actually, I don't even know what that is. Do you know what that is? Like, what is the psychology of, if I'm asking questions, I am positive that I'm more in control of the situation because the other person is they're receiving what I'm sending, but they're also following because I'm controlling the question, meaning their response always has to do with what I say, right? So if I'm sitting there and they're super low energy and they're like one word answers, I might just let the silence sit in the room and be uncomfortable while I gently smile at them. And quite honestly, I might call it the way that it is. I might say, you guys might not really like this experience, do you? Listing your house feels uncomfortable maybe for you. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
And being able to pick up on that and ask those I would call them invasive questions. You want them to be like, oh, well, he really cares. You know, I might be having to sell my home that I grew up in, my childhood home. My mom passed away 2 years ago and I moved in thinking I could stay here, but, you know, knowing that she's gone, it's too hard for me. So I think it's time for me to move on. It's a real emotional roller coaster. Whether you're buying a home or you're selling a home, our clients do this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where I would say don't really match their energy when they're like this, right? I mean, our sellers go through, the buyers are going back on their word with offering as is. Now they're asking for $20,000, right? So we want to stay level-headed as much as we can. Maybe you'll get into your car and you'll be like, oh my God, this is horrible. And you may be super stressed, but showing our clients that we can stay more level-headed, right? And guiding them through their roller coaster, bringing them down and being able to recognize, oh, they're upset. Okay. And so for example, personal experience, I jumped in on a transaction. It was a newer agent. She was spread too far, right? She was doing multiple different jobs and she couldn't really engage with these clients. And these clients were very, very difficult. They're someone that I would probably choose never to work with again. I mean, they were racist. They made a comment about my biracial daughter. Like, you know, they were really rough to work with, but I had to separate my personal feelings and realize, okay, what do I need to do to keep these sellers, you know, we're closing in tomorrow and they're, you know, calling me and they're upset with their agent. Well, when they first came, I told them and I told the agent, we all need to sit down in person. We're not doing the text messages because there's a wife who has different goals than the husband, and they're not understanding your text messages. So we need to just sit down in person, because once again, in text messages or emails, tone of voice can be lost. You don't have that body language to read off of. And so she showed up 15 minutes late. So I was the first connection. And as they were walking towards me, the husband was walking like this. He was frowning. His steps were super heavy. The wife was walking about 20 feet behind him, and she was kind of slunched over. And they had those facial expressions that were not happy. And I was able to pick up with that right away. And so I was able to go in it with on a more sensitive side, being able to tell myself, okay, they're upset. I need to let them vent. I need to actually listen to them and find out what the problem is. Why are they upset? What happened? How did we get there? And what can we do to problem solve? The husband was the main talker. And as I know, men, they're problem solvers, right? They want to get, here are the facts. How can you fix my problem? So when we sat down, he was closed off, grumpy, saying some, hurtful things. And finally I said, okay, so it sounds like A, B, and C is what got us here. Here's the problems. Now, how can we problem solve these? Here are the answers. Here's the correct information. How can we work together as a team so you close on sell your home tomorrow? And so by the end of that conversation, because I listened and then repeated back what the problems were and provided solutions and the steps on how we would get to those solutions, they left happy and thankful. And their body language was more relaxed. They were smiling, they were more opened, and then they wanted to continue to sit and talk. So being able to recognize the facial cues and the body language and nonverbal cues instantly, you're going to be able to really think on your toes and decide, how am I going to handle the situation?
Again, that's fantastic. And what's really happening there too is you're reading facial cues, you're understanding the what psychology is allowing us to see, but it's also visual psychology, right? Which kind of just goes into reading a human being to understand where they exist, right? And if that's not something you're great at, here's a little trick, by the way, or a little hint, pro tip. The better you get at this, the better your relationships will be with everyone.
Yeah.
Right? When you can tell someone's not receptive, you know what to do there. One other thing that I'll just pepper in here, because it's a very high participation call, and I really appreciate that, is that I love asking people, what are you trying to achieve? What's your goal? And I believe wholeheartedly, even with that squirrely person that we were talking about who was kind of playing games and interviewing 294 agents or whatever, and if they had said, well, I just want to know what you think my house is worth, and I'd say, that's great. I would love to know what that number is too. But also, what are you trying to achieve? I take control. Did you notice? I just repeated my exact same question. I'm not going to let them pass go, collect $200 and move on with the game, right? Community chess. You're in prison. My question, right? But the other thing is, and they might not like my approach and they may choose to go with someone else, but guess what? I'm not going to work with a client who mops the floor with me, because I promise you that deal is not going to close and it's going to steal all of your time, energy, and passion. Just don't do it. Don't work with that person. If they're being a jerk or they're going to interview 200 agents, it's probably because they hate agents to begin with. So that's a failing relationship from day one.
And commitment issues.
Thank you. It's like, that would be like if I found somebody, in a personal relationship who hated bald people. I'm like, well, this is not going to work out, right? Like, guess what? Since I was 15, this noggin has been seeing the sun. So that's what we're doing here. So I just think that your opportunity is really to ask questions and then listen, respond with a question based on what they just said, and repeat that process again and again. If you don't know what to do, by the way, if you're on this call and you're like, what do I do with all this? Ask more questions. Honestly, respond to the other person's body language, mirror and match. Don't show yourself to be guarded off, right? If you feel uncomfortable, but you show uncomfortable, you're going to receive uncomfortable results. True and true. The thing I know about Luna Mariah, and I've hung out with her in person, she's as dynamic in person as she is on a call. And guess what? Is that an accident? No, it might be practiced and now it feels natural. I don't know. It might just be who you are. I don't actually know that about you, but I know that you're consistent. And so you have enough awareness to understand, if I wear a smile, if I do these certain things, it receives a certain response. But I've met agents before who it's like rubbing a piece of dry sandpaper on my eyeball to pull a conversation out of them. And I'm not even selling my house. I'm like, dude, how are you doing any deals? I don't understand why people don't just run the other direction. So part of what's happening is we're always sending cues. Guess what? A couple other things that I'll just mention in here, and then I'm curious what you think on this, Luna. Many times for me, I try to vary, or variegate is maybe even cooler word, but I'll just say vary because it's a cool vocabulary word. I try to vary up my speed of speaking. I'll try to vary. What are all the variables, right? My loudness or my quietness. Sometimes maybe I want to get nice and quiet for somebody. Sometimes I need to be loud. Sometimes I try to be really animated, and sometimes I try to be really still. Sometimes I try to speak really quickly, or sometimes I try to speak a little bit more slowly for impact. And what's interesting is all of those things make for more interesting music that's falling out of your face.
Yeah.
Right? Because occasionally we don't think of ourselves as a piece of music, but I will tell you, if you start thinking that way, you want to know what boring music sounds like? Here it is. Bah. If I did that for 10 minutes, all of you would tune out. I promise you that's terrible music, right? Why? Because it's all just one thing. It's like listening to the emergency signal on your TV. Nobody likes that. If you remember that from back in the 90s or thousands, whenever they used to do that crap, right? So what is it though that about variety that actually gets the other person to engage it? I feel like it turns up their energy, but what creates that? I don't actually know.
So I would say it's once again, people without them even knowing it, they're going to naturally mirror you as well. Right? We're creatures of habit too. And we just kind of, I don't know how to like really explain it. It's in my head. But they're going to do what you're doing, but without knowing it. So they're going to start mirroring you. You're going to pick up their energy. If you go in there full blown blast right off the bat, that may, if they're a shy person, push them away. But if you slowly bring up your levels, they'll slowly match you as well. And what that will do is finally, then you're kind of like this, right? Level-headed. And the biggest thing is we like to talk about ourselves. Right? As a human, we like talking about ourselves. We like talking. We like hearing our voices. And so by you pulling out the information and forcing them to talk, they're going to warm up to you. They're going to, oh, he wants to listen. They're going to slowly let their guard down, and they're going to open up more. They may start out short, but if, like you did, you're not going to let them say just no. You're going to re-ask them in maybe a different way. And you're going to slowly pull out that information, and they'll start asking. You don't ask yes or no questions, right? If they could just say yes to the question, you're asking the wrong questions. Instead of saying, is your goal to sell your house? Like, yes, okay. Instead, you could say, why, for instance, what are 5 goals that you have for this year? I know one of them is selling your home. What's your time frame that you want to sell your home? Is a goal to sell it within 90 days and to take that money and go travel the world? Like, give them also ideas. If you're just saying, what are your goals? That's so broad, but help direct them, help guide them to get information. If you're like, do you want to sell your home and go on vacation? They're going to like, no, well, I want to sell my first home and upgrade to a bigger home. That's giving you information. Great. So a bigger home, is that a 3-bedroom? You're in a 2-bedroom right now, or do you want a 4-bedroom? So you want to kind of give them the options, but it's going to pull information out from them, and guiding a question to where it could actually have them talk about themselves instead of just yes or no.
I love that. Yeah, the concept of a yes or no question being death in sales. By the way, if you're on this call and you've never heard that before, that's super true. Yes or no questions will kill you unless you already know what the answer is. That's the one caveat. If you know that the answer is yes, feel free to ask. Right? Because then you know the answer, you can predict the future. But if you don't know like, for instance, if I'm sitting in front of a potential seller, I might say, for most people, they're really just trying to max out the amount of money that they make when they sell their house. Is that one of your goals? That's a yes or no question. But if they answer no, then I'm going to buy their house for $1 right then, because clearly they don't care about it. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's just good for me either way. I'm good. But I believe that their answer is going to be yes, because I've asked that question thousands of times and it's only ever been yes. Right? So like, that's just a guaranteed yes. Sometimes we can pepper that in and get to 5 yeses. But otherwise, this idea of asking an open-ended questions, like if I'm asking Luna Mariah in a listing appointment, I might say, what exactly are you trying to achieve with this home sale? It's really exciting. That's not, she said, she can't say no.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Right? If she said no, I would literally look behind myself. I'd be like, did something happen? What's going on?
Yeah. And there are good times to ask for the yes or no. For instance, I just kind of saw a question down there. would you be open to, for instance, would you be open to me hosting open houses? Yes or no? And say yes, you could be like, okay, that's great. What's a good time for you to have, an open house? Is it in the afternoon? Is that better time frame for you? So you could, get the house ready, or is it maybe in the morning time because you want to come home and relax in the afternoon? And they're going to give you more of a detailed question. But if you're asking a yes or no question, have another question to follow up to gather more information from them. That's something I really recommend and I practice myself, because there are times you need to ask a question where it's going to be the simple yes or no, but following up with a question where they need to give you more information will be good too. Some things I would really recommend. Yeah, some things I would really recommend doing if you're finding yourself having a hard time closing, a sale. And when I say closing a sale, I'm not saying a house is closing and you're getting paid, but you don't have that agency until they commit to you, until those papers are signed. So if you're struggling and you're going to a listing appointment, you're not getting those listing appointments, I really recommend taking interpersonal communication, even if you're not struggling with it. A lot of community colleges offer interpersonal communication classes. Psychology of business, take some classes that are psychology courses, but focus on more business. But really taking some interpersonal communication courses, listening to those podcasts about that are going to really help you, and take notes, and then to practice in the mirror, do some role playing, because that's really going to help you be confident in when you're in front of your actual client.
Thank you again to Luna Mariah for being such an amazing leader and for giving her time, energy, and passion. How many people can feel like she is absolutely passionate about what she does, right? That's me, for sure. Woo, she is incredible. Well, listen, I love that you guys are here. Thank you so much for spending time with the community, and we will see you next week, same time, same place, for another great one. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.